I found my grandfather's diary in a metal box, buried beneath the floorboards of his childhood home. The pages were stained with mud and something darker. Blood, I realized. And the final entry was dated 3 days before he died on Omaha Beach. But it wasn't the date that made my hands shake. It was the name written at the top of that last page. Not my grandmother's name, not his mother's. It was a French woman named Élise Moreau, and the words he wrote were, "If I die tomorrow, she dies too. They'll execute her at dawn if this mission fails. God forgive me for loving 2 women. My grandmother never remarried. She waited 70 years for him, died at 93 still wearing her engagement ring. And I'm standing here holding proof that my grandfather died in love with someone else. Someone whose life depended on him surviving a mission he knew would kill him. But let me start from the beginning, because the truth buried in these pages is far more devastating than a wartime affair. My grandfather, James Sullivan, was 24 when he stormed Normandy with the 29th Infantry Division on June 6, 1944. He'd married my grandmother Dorothy 6 months before deployment, a rushed ceremony in a Kansas courthouse because he'd gotten his orders. The photo I grew up seeing showed them beaming outside that courthouse, but I never noticed what I see now. Dorothy's smile doesn't quite reach her eyes. She knew. Women always knew. James left behind a pregnant wife he barely knew, and a farming family that needed him. He promised Dorothy he'd come home to meet their son. My father was born November 1944, 5 months after James died, face down in French sand, clutching a photograph nobody could identify because it had been destroyed by seawater and blood. The metal box sat untouched for 80 years. We discovered it 2 months ago when we demolished James's childhood farmhouse. The place was finally being sold. The last connection to him disappearing under developers' plans. My uncle found it wedged between floor joists, wrapped in oilcloth that had mostly rotted away. Inside were 3 items: the diary, a woman's silk scarf that still held the ghost of perfume, and a hand-drawn map of a small French village called Sainte-Mère-Église. The diary entries started normal enough. Training camp complaints, homesick rambling, mentions of Dorothy. Wrote to Dot today. Hope the baby's healthy. Then the entries from England, April 1944, changed everything. Pulled reconnaissance duty behind enemy lines. Inserted near Sainte-Mère-Église with French resistance contact. Her code name is Nightingale. 3 weeks of entries followed. James and 4 other paratroopers spent April and May 1944 living. James's entries became poetic. Élise taught me French curse words today while we waited for a patrol to pass. She laughs without sound, just her shoulders shaking. I realized I haven't heard Dorothy laugh. Not really, we barely knew each other. By mid-May, the words shifted from admiration to something more dangerous. I understand now why men desert. If I could stay in this village, in this war-torn hell, just to see Élise smile at dawn when she brings bread she baked from nothing, I would abandon everything. But that's not even the most heartbreaking part. On May 28, 1944, 9 days before D-Day, James wrote about the mission. Allied command needed someone to destroy a German radio tower near Sainte-Mère-Église. The tower coordinated coastal defenses. If it operated during the invasion, thousands would die on the beaches. The mission required a 2-person team. 1 soldier to plant explosives, 1 resistance fighter to navigate the approach and escape routes. James volunteered. Élise was assigned as his partner. The entry from that night is barely legible, like his hand shook while writing. They briefed us today. The tower is surrounded by a minefield. The approach requires crossing it twice. Once in, once out. Élise knows a path the Germans don't watch. A shepherd's trail her grandfather used. Command says we have a 60% chance. Élise told me privately the real odds are lower. The Germans changed patrol patterns. Her last 3 couriers who attempted missions in that sector never came back. She's been awake for 36 hours memorizing every detail because she refuses to let me die alone. What I discovered next shattered everything. June the 2nd, 1944, 4 days before the invasion. James received orders. Command changed the mission. Now it required only one person, a solo infiltration to plant the explosives on a timer. No resistance contact necessary. It was safer, they said. Less risk of compromise. James would go alone at midnight, set the charge, and exfiltrate by dawn. Élise would stay hidden in the village. She cried when they told her, James wrote. Not from relief, from rage. She knows what I know. His entry reads, solo means suicide. They're sending me to die, but preserving their resistance asset. She's too valuable to risk. I'm just infantry. Replaceable. Here's where everything changes. James didn't go alone. The diarist reveals that he and Élise defied orders. They went together on June 3rd, 1944, 3 days before D-Day. They crossed the minefield using her grandfather's path. They reached the tower. James placed the explosives while Élise kept watch. The charges were set for 6:30 a.m. on June 6th, right when the first landing craft would hit Omaha Beach. James wrote his final entry crouched behind a stone wall, watching Élise trapped 15 feet away. I have 60 seconds to decide. If I surrender, we both die, and the mission fails. If I open fire, I might kill the patrol, but the gunshots will bring reinforcements. We'll never escape the minefield in daylight. There's only one choice. I can draw them away from her. I can run the opposite direction, make them chase me, give her time to finish crossing and reach safety. The tower still explodes. The invasion succeeds. She lives. But I'll die today. Not on the beach where I'm supposed to. Dorothy will receive a telegram saying I died in combat. She'll never know I died saving a woman I loved more than I should have. Élise will live and never be able to tell anyone what happened because the mission is classified. My son will grow up thinking his father was a hero. I suppose dying to save thousands of men makes me one. But the truth is simpler. I'm dying for one person. That's all that matters. The next page had 3 words in different handwriting. Feminine, precise. He saved me. A. The truth was buried for a reason. James ran. He drew the patrol away from Élise and the minefield. He led them 3 miles through French countryside before they cornered him at a burned-out barn. He fought. He died June 3rd, 1944. 3 days before his official death date on Omaha Beach. Allied command covered it up. James's body was recovered after D-Day and placed among the beach casualties. His sacrifice remained classified for 40 years because revealing a pre-invasion reconnaissance mission would compromise intelligence methods. By the time the mission was declassified in the 1980s, everyone who knew the truth was dead or scattered, except Élise. My grandmother knew none of this. She died believing James loved only her, that he died heroically on the beach thinking of his pregnant wife. Maybe that's the kindest ending. But I keep thinking about that final diary entry. about a man who had 60 seconds to choose between the woman he promised to love and the woman he actually loved, between his unborn son and 2,000 strangers, between duty and desire. He chose all of it. He chose to die so everyone else could live. That takes a kind of courage I can't comprehend. The silk scarf in the box belonged to Élise. She gave it to James the night before the mission. It still smells faintly of lavender. French lavender, she told me, that grew wild behind her village schoolhouse. She asked if she could keep the diary. I gave it to her. It was always hers. If stories like this moves you, hit subscribe. We share untold stories of sacrifice and impossible choices every week. Ring that notification bell as well.